Hey everyone, the WGA, aka the Writers Guild of America, is on strike in California and New York over working conditions, pay disputes, and a lack of communication among many other issues from major studios where they work. Writers are some of the most important aspects of creating the art that you love, and without them, actors wouldn't know what to say, animators can't bring their words to life, and you wouldn't have some of the most iconic pieces of dialogue in media history. The studios are threatening the livelihoods of the writers by taking away their pay and their jobs, being replaced with AI, and even crafting scripts with AI and then doing the dubious work of having said writers rewrite the scripts when the strike is over. These studios execs think that they can run without them, but in fact, they cannot. It's pretty obvious that people are no longer accepting the working conditions they are forced under by the execs and are demanding residuals from streaming services as well as more context and data about the numbers, the shows, and projects they work on, due to the constant nonsense pulled by Netflix and other companies with hiding the numbers. The execs are going to act like the house is not on fire, as they plan on waiting it out, but sooner or later, their waves are going to catch up to them on their yachts. Now then, if you want to keep up with the news and updates about supporting the strikes, follow WGA West and WGA East on Twitter to see where they will be protesting. If you want to donate cash for the cause, you can go to entertainmentcommunityfund.org. When you make the donation, make sure to designate to film and television, since that's who needs it right now. It's not a strike fund. It's a fund made specifically for people in film and television who are affected by the strike right now. If you truly love the people who craft the stories you love, then you should donate. Again, don't just do instant boycotts or Twitter field boycotts. Please follow the WGA West and WGA East accounts and go to the destinations they pick and or donate to the fund at entertainmentcommunityfund.org. We at Renegade Pop Culture stand with the writers and the multitude of guilds and groups that are standing behind the writers for better pay and working conditions. Now then, if you like what we do, please give us a like, a follow, and a rating on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to us. We are everywhere. Also, consider supporting our Patreon. That way, we can keep doing what we love, and that's talking about the Spring 2023 anime season, Part 2. And now, on with the show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And we've got Teresa.
Hello.
And we have an interesting batch of shows for part 2 of our spring anime impressions. We've got the fantasy / isekai anime and the romance and comedy. So, Cameron, you want to start off with our first and probably one of the worst ones?
Okay, let's get started here because, boy, the fantasy isekai genre this season was a lot rougher than most seasons, even until we know otherwise about the summer season. The first one we're going to talk about is I Got a Cheat Skill in Another World and Became Unrivaled. Content warning, there's themes of harassment, bullying, and a lot of fat phobia. Because this is the work by the same author who did the intensely terrible and NFT-riddled Fruit of Evolution. And they are basically the same show because I Got a Cheat Skill in Another World is about a heavy-set main character who is bullied and treated terrible in life by everyone, including family members, until he inherits his grandfather's house and ends up finding a portal to a fantasy world where he is able to travel to and from each world and becomes thin and every other middling power fantasy nonsense trope that happens. He gets harem candidates. He gets friends who just do not know how to have a life without it revolving around our main lead, and so on. Our second show, My One Hit Kill Sister, content warning, themes of incest, is another isekai about a young man who ends up getting transported to another world. The only twist is that his sister came along with him, and she is the one with all the superpower fantasy stuff. And she is also super obsessed with her brother, so we'll talk about that. The Aristocrat's Otherworldly Adventure, which just hits the ground running with our character getting sent to a fantasy world, starting out as a child and growing up as a young aristocrat with the multitude of blessings from the gods who all gave him like straight A's across the board. Then we have Kamikatsu working for a god in a godless world. Content warning, cult stuff. So we have a guy who is killed by his father who ran a cult with a ritual gone wrong and is sent to another world where there is no god, and to survive in a world where the government decides when you live and when you die, to start his own cult with the god that his father was worshipping. Then for our one non-isekai in this category, we have the Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts, which is basically every single Beauty and the Beast anime out there with a young girl who is sacrificed to the Beast King so that the beasts do not hurt the humans, but then end up romantically entangled. I'm going to start first because this category sucked. There's no sugarcoating it. It was pretty terrible in a very unique way, in that almost every show except for the Sacrificial Princess was terrible in their own special way. I Got a Cheat Skill in Another World and Became Unrivaled is the most unapologetic self-insert character from the author story ever. And you think after One Punch Man indeed tore down the reason why power fantasies suck as a story, but people just keep on chugging because isekais are super popular since the anime viewership has no taste. It's just like nothing goes wrong with this guy after he gets to go to and from the fantasy world. He gets super tall, super thin, super hot. Everyone that is around his orbit cannot stop talking about him. It's creepy. It's supposed to be endearing of like, wow, he is super cute and super hot. Man, he must be a model. Speaking of modeling, he's just wandering. There's a story beat in the 3rd episode where he's just wandering around, getting new clothes at the mall, and just gets roped into a modeling contract because the photographer and the fashion designer apparently thought he was the only guy who could do it. And the only way this story works in any, I want to say sensible, but that's not the right word, in a very contrived way, is if everyone else is a piece of garbage, except for the 2 male friends at the new school who are no threats to the lead and his possible harem. The ladies who just fawn over him, even though he looks like every generic shonen action franchise fantasy lead. There's nothing all that different. And I am getting so sick of this author. He makes, so far, 2 incredibly terrible isekais. I think Fruit of Evolution, if it wasn't for X-Arm, would have probably been my candidate for the worst anime of 2021. And it didn't help in 2022 where they're like, we're going to make Fruit of Evolution NFTs. Yeah. Probably not the author's fault, but still, he had to have some kind of okay on that. And there's just no stakes to it. The guy's not going to lose a fight. Everyone's going to treat him like he invented sliced bread. It's a boring show. Why keep making these? Why can't these authors start doing something more with these kind of ideas? Why not take an approach to lookism where it talks about the beauty standards and how society treats people who are heavier set and not chiseled out of stone like the Adonis or Aphrodite that people think everyone should look, and that only they get everything in life. Just screw this show. Just for my one hit kill sister, you would think this would not get any kind of production budget or values that most anime wish they could have. But for some reason, the incest fetish, brother obsessed anime gets some of the sharpest directing, fight choreography, and fight scenes. Like, the animation is shockingly good for something like this. Whatever team that they got to do all of this were obviously putting their all into it. Too bad the male lead sucks and the whole incest angle hangs over the anime. So whatever good comes out of it, the thing dangling above there is going to remind you what the actual point of the show is. That's frustrating, man. Most anime wish it could have animation as good as this one. Life is not fair. The Aristocrats' Otherworldly Adventure doesn't have the best animation. It also has every single power fantasy problem. There are no stakes. The mentors are pointless. The kid is 10 years old and he's already getting a harem when most 10-year-olds are not thinking about that stuff. If I was 10 and I was sent to a fantasy world and I could have all the powers of God, I would go out and fight a dragon. This anime, for what little it does right, is at least trying with its humor. It's being very zany and silly and sort of self-aware because our lead gets isekai'd like in the first 3 minutes of the first episode. And they just kind of skip over all of those tropes at the beginning just to get to the part where he gets isekai'd. There's like a sense of humor to it. They're obviously trying to make you laugh. There's just so much of it that doesn't work, and it's not interested in anything else about the world. It's wasted opportunity on a show that's obviously not trying to go by the numbers, but is still going by the numbers because Kamikatsu. I want to hear what y'all think about this first, so I'm going to skip what I have to say here because this anime is unhinged. I mean, if you already by the end, are still watching this show until it ends in June, well, you already know how good, bad, trash it is. Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts. I kind of feel bad for this one because it came out a season after that really bad one from the previous season of anime. Then it got stuck with having to release a few weeks after The Ancient Mage's Bride, which is already kind of like the king of, this Beauty and the Beast like story. And I'm still not so fond of the fact that there has to be a young girl. Like, can we stop that already? Just stop trying to engage off kids or trying to put kids into marriage at a young age. We don't need to do that. Kids need to be kids. They need to live a life. With all that said, the show is actually focused more on the story and the character dynamics, the world building, the lore around the beast people and the humans. Our two leads work well off of one another, and it has cute animation from time to time. And it also has a pretty solid opening song sequence, which is really catchy. That's really all I have to say about it. I definitely want to see more and how the other characters get involved. And if any show can do that after the one episode or 3, then it's doing a solid enough job. I just don't think it would be anywhere near my favorites this season, and it would probably get left to the wayside if this was a stronger overall season.
Fantasy when it's bogged down by so many isekai is never my favorite. And as you said, it's pretty weak this season. It's like there would be a good premise. I think I probably wrote that most of the time, but then it's ruined by something, except for in the King of Beast, which I did enjoy. I would say one hit kill. I would have loved it if the sister would stop hitting on the brother. It's just gross and unnecessary. I don't know what audience it's going for. It's just weird. They could have just not made her the sister, and then maybe I would watch it, but I'm thoroughly grossed out. And then, as you said, I think the same problem with I Got a Cheat Skill and the Aristocrat Adventures is the hero just kills everything and keeps leveling up, and they're obsessed with talking about the levels, and that always, this is like what bores the heck out of me in the isekai shows when it's the power level, all that kind of stuff. I watched the dub of the Aristocrat Adventure one, and the baby voice. I know it's supposed to be a baby, but the baby voice like almost made me switch it back to subtitled. And then I said, oh, he's going to grow up at least a few years, so the baby voice will go away. But it was pretty obnoxious. I did think it was the most realistic isekai reaction because they woke up in a baby's body and they're like, who the hell is that? That's exactly what I would do if I woke up in another world. I don't want to be like, yeah, this is another world. Totally cool. Let's just keep going. I feel like they always do that in a bunch of other isekai, and they don't really like react to the fact that like, hey, I'm in a whole new life. So I thought that part was at least an effort, but I can't in good faith continue to watch that show. Tamamatsu, I was so confused the first episode with the who is the god? They don't explain. They just sacrifice to him, and then the god pops back up and it's this like cutesy looking little girl, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of funny. It has kind of funny characters. I feel like I was trying to go for like the cutesiness of like otaku elf or something like that, but it has none of the sweetness and just all of the like fan service boob jokes and the knight in the female body. I like that they were trying to say a woman can be a knight. It was just based on the fact that it used to be a man and then finally it's accepted. It's just very, the logic wasn't quite there. I just don't think I could in good faith recommend that one, but it is watchable. I thought Matama as like, an inept god that needs people to worship her was pretty funny. I'm not sure I like the main character, even though I feel sorry for his predicament. But I thought King of Beasts was very sweet. Yes, it's problematic that she's a little girl, but it's very like he's kind of taking care of her until she gets older, and then it turns into the relationship. It wasn't like a switch. I like all the animal characters. I thought Anubis being a little snooty assistant for the king was pretty funny. I like the parallel they're making between the human world being mean to her and the beast world being mean to her, that, both human beasts, rich people, stuck up people can be rude, like rumors can kind of ruin people's lives. I liked what it had to say. I really liked the animation. I feel like because we watch everything, but like an average viewer might have forgotten about the other stuff. So it won't feel as same. I know they don't care about the isekais being the same. So if we have a bunch of Beauty and the Beast stories, I'm not mad at it. But definitely that's the best one of the bunch. Most of the things I would say, except Kamamatsu and Aristocrat, those are just, in my opinion, a little boring. But the other ones were truly offensive and unnecessary.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with the panel overall that if I were grading the fantasy isekai shows, I would give this probably no more than like a C minus, because I Got a Cheat Skill in Another World and the Aristocrats Otherworldly Adventures, they have similar problems in that I'm very curious if the authors are vegans because there's no stakes. By far the worst one is I Got a Cheat Skill in Another World, because the fat phobia that is plaguing at least a good chunk of the first episode is genuinely uncomfortable, and not in a, if you want the better version of the story, watch Lookism on Netflix, because they handle the material so much better. It's still not an easy watch, but it's far better written than whatever dreck this is. My One Hit Kill Sister, I agree with what Cameron said. Production-wise, this looks so much better than the material. For that reason, I completely understand if listening to a plot synopsis will like turn you off from this one. If you can get past the copious amounts of incest and that kind of being the one running joke throughout the series, it is mildly entertaining at points, even if that joke does kind of overstay its welcome after like the first episode.
It overstays its welcome the moment it shows up. Shows up to the party uninvited, you just slam that door shut and you just leave it out there, man. Just stop with the incest stuff.
Yeah. The Aristocrats' Otherworldly Adventure, I'll give it this. At least it tries to be self-aware. That's one thing I do kind of appreciate about isekai, that the genre has been, or at least this modern iteration of the genre has been around for so long that I will get some enjoyment out of a show that kind of makes fun of itself. But do that for too long and it'll lose its punch, and all you're left with is the power fantasy stuff. And I think I said multiple times watching the third episode, like, guys, he's 10. We don't need to do all this stuff. He's 10. Kamikatsu working for a god in a godless world. This show is just wild. It's one of those shows that's so bad, it kind of circles around to being amazing. If you look at Cameron's editorial, he had a thumbnail image that pretty much just defines the show. There is no congruence between the human characters and these CGI abominations who are like the monsters of this world. The rules of gods and other deities makes no sense. Nothing here makes sense, but you know what? If you can find some sort of entertainment value in that, then I say go for it. It is a shame that Sacrificial Princess and the King of Beasts is only the best of this bunch by default. It's not anything great. We've seen a million different shows like it before, but for what it is enjoyable. I like the chemistry between our two romantic leads, and I am enjoying seeing this world sort of being developed throughout these first couple episodes. It's probably not going to be in my top 5 for this season, but I thought it was enjoyable enough.
So, yeah, unless you are living under a rock, you probably can understand that Kamikatsu had a very obvious, and if you don't think this is obvious, I commend you for thinking that this is normal or in just wacky anime, because it's pretty officially confirmed that the anime was not going to make its production deadlines. They were cutting corners left and right. There's a lot of reused animation, and well, that's not a bad thing at all. They just go every way possible from one end of the earth to the other to cover up the fact that nothing was going to work. The CGI stands out from the 2D animation. The 2D animation itself is not great. If y'all have seen the 4th episode, you already know that weird little sequence at the beginning of the live action stock footage farm vehicle picking up crops with a weird filter on it with the farmer's head replaced with one of the characters. And you can think that, oh, they have no idea what they're doing since this is a relatively new studio, but the writer pretty much picked that screenshot of the farm vehicle as his Twitter banner. So I think they were aware of what they were doing. This feels like a show that wasn't meant to be adapted, because on one side of the spectrum, you have absurdly shoddy production values and a story that cannot pick between its cynical side, its silly side, and its more serious side. And then on the other hand, you have a sharply pointed story that's really critical about religion, government, cults, and doesn't really like our main characters at all because they're apparently a bunch of degenerates. But when I got to episode 6, because I just had to see how this train wreck was still on the tracks, because it kept constantly falling off the tracks, getting back on it, and falling off it at multiple times. It gets too serious, and they just basically reboot the whole plot. And that bugged me a little, because it seems like I feel bad because they were obviously stuck with a bad production cycle. Someone was not paying attention to the deadlines of having to get this done. A shame. It's weird. And that's why it's the second best by default because it's at least a unforgettable experience of intentional and unintentional laughters and decision making. It's just a bonkers thing that this got through because even X-Arm would be like, at least I was consistently terrible.
I'm looking up the studio behind this show, Studio Palette. This is only their third TV series.
Yeah, they helped out with that Assassin from Another World show that we talked about a while back. That we were all like, oh, it has an interesting premise. Oh, well, never mind. So for the romance comedy section, with a hint of drama, because boy, do some of these shows get dramatic fast. So we have Rokudo's Bad Girls, which is about a high school student who gets cursed and has a bunch of ladies attracted to him. The only problem is they are delinquents and bad girls, especially this one extremely violent and strong girl who is attracted to him for no real reason, but we'll get into that. Yuri Is My Job, about a young girl who basically has put on a facade through her entire life just to be loved, is put through the ultimate test of getting roped into helping out at a themed cafe that's basically a Yuri girl love based setting, and runs into another employee there who is not accepting her fake facade. Then we have Too Cute Crisis, the most straightforward show of the season, which is saying something, which is about an alien who is sent to Earth from her colony to see if Earth is worth destroying, and runs into a cat cafe and just realizes how she really can't destroy the Earth because there are just too many cute animals. We have A Galaxy Next Door, which is about a widowed manga creator, since he does writing and designs, who has to take care of his two kids while looking for a new assistant, runs into the most lovely self-insert wish fulfillment female lead a lonely manga author could ask for, who just happens to have this out of this world, metaphorically and literal, twist connected to her. The reason why Raylina ended up at the Duke's Mansion is a isekai, but most romance period piece drama about a girl who gets isekai'd into this novel that she's read, but not as the lead, but as a side character whose fate is to get poisoned. And it's up to her to try to find a way to not get killed, and she thinks the way to do it is to hook up with this Duke, and we see how this game of Victorian era chess is played. The Dangers in My Heart is about an angsty edgelord teenager who dreams about killing his fellow classmates until one day he runs into the popular girl at the school and thinks that, okay, she's going to be my first victim. And then finds out that she's a lot quirkier than she leads on. And a loving friendship is born. Then we have the big hype anime of the season with Oshi no Ko, aka My Favorite Idol. Content warning, stalking, mentions of suicide, and abuse. We'll talk about this one a little more, but let's just say a idol goes on hiatus and gives birth to twins that have a very particular connection to her. Then we have Loving Yamada at level 999, which is about a young college woman who breaks up with her boyfriend who ends up wanting to date this woman that he met online, and to take out her sadness and anger of the breakup out on something, she ends up meeting and encountering a fellow guild member in a MMO that she played because of her ex-boyfriend, but now plays it because, she likes it. And the two end up meeting in real life, and shenanigans ensue. Teresa, what did you think about the rom-com comedy drama category?
It was a big category.
Yeah.
This time. I think it was pretty strong overall. Definitely a lot of good shows. I think when it was bad, it wasn't super offensive like the last genre category. I would say it was just focused on really trivial things that could be really repetitive and boring. So, like Rakuta's Bad Girls, I didn't know there were so many bad girls to be hanging around one junior high school. Apparently there are. I didn't really care for the animation. I just thought it was kind of weird the way it was opening with like kind of magic, but then it's kind of like West Side Story all of a sudden, and there's gangs battling, and it's all about like beating up kids and having, little fights. And I was like, this is weird. But all those bad girls are in love with him, so it is trying to be a romance. But the kind of main story in the first 3 episodes is he's trying to get the super bad girl to not fall in love with him by going straight. And I thought that was kind of cute. There's a whole plant diary plot line that, I feel like I was trying to be wholesome. It didn't quite pull it off for me, but I gave it like, a B for effort. For me, I wouldn't recommend this really unless you really like the idea of like bullies and bad girls and slapstick comedy around kids wanting to fight each other all the time is a nice way of saying it. But, it wasn't terrible. And the same thing with Yuri Is My Job. I liked the cafe as like a premise and like having a romance there, especially when it's very gay, like girl and girl romance. But it's really just about these two girls who lie all the time and have like history with each other. And it's almost about like what it means to be like interacting and presenting yourself as a teenage girl and like coming to terms about, is there a good way or a bad way to go about it? And it gets pretty deep, surprisingly, for what I expected from the romance comedy characters, genre. I don't know if I'm hooked enough to keep going, but I definitely liked the twist of, the history that those two girls had. I kind of saw it from a little far away. I was like, something's up here. There's no way this girl's mean to her for no reason. And you find out that there is a pretty good reason. And then, Too Cute Crisis, it's cute. I don't think there's anything bad I could say about it. It's very like, I would say like upper decks, like very like funny kind of space alien comedy jokes. I mean, I'm a cat lover, I'm a dog lover. So I thought I had some really good fun lines about pet owners and what cats do and like, aliens who've never encountered a cat before. Is it in my top 5? No. It's definitely watchable. And, if you need some cat content, you need to go to the show for sure. The Dangers of My Heart and Why Ray Liotta Ended Up at the Duke's Mansion, they have kind of like dark themes, especially the little kid in The Dangers of My Heart. I mean, he's acts like he's going to kill everyone in the first episode, but really he's a softie. And he has a strong crush forming for this girl. And Ray Liotta, I thought that, I like the idea when it's kind of an isekai, but like it goes into a story they already know. So they already know what's going to happen to their character and they kind of have an upper hand on the whole world. So I thought it was interesting. I could keep watching it. I have to say, the guy who's trying to poison her sucks a lot. And I'm really glad that he gets a little taste of his own medicine. The Duke, and I like that the Duke is kind of a bad guy. So she's trying to get the bad guy to protect her. There's a lot of different layers, but, I would say if you don't have anything else to watch, this would probably be what I would watch next. But I adored A Galaxy Next Door. I love sweet love stories. I love that it's talking about making manga. So it's a little bit like self-reflexive about the industry. It's a kid raising his brother and sister, and this really adorable like woman from the stars comes here and wants to explore the world. So I really like that fish out of water story. And it's just the way the animation is drawn is just very sweet. Everything I want. And then a romance anime. My love story with Yamana Kim at level 99 is hilarious. I'm sure you will get into the other episodes, but the 3 episodes that I saw it's a mix of sad, but like true observations, I think, of gamers and having broken hearts and things like that. So definitely something that I'm going to keep watching. And then the big one with the 1.5-hour episode was a roller coaster of a first order. And I thought I knew where it was going, but I didn't. That twist at the end of the prologue definitely got me. And now it's almost like a revenge story, starting out as an idle kind of romance. I didn't think that's where it was going to go. And I also just think it's very weird that it's two reincarnated people as twins. I think that's an interesting premise that I don't think has been done before. The babies' names, Aquamarine and Ruby, are a little weird, but I went with it. You know, she's an idol. She's 16. She names her kids after Jules. That's fine. Definitely want to keep going, especially with the way the prologue ends. But I would say if you watch that show, you got to be ready for a lot of dark twists and turns for sure. But definitely a lot of really top shows that I think, you know, a lot of people could get into. I think it's so strong. I think honestly stronger than action adventure this season. A lot more of the shows that I really want to watch.
This was the genre that honestly surprised me the most. Like, okay, there's one really bad show, and that's Roku's Bad Girls. A lot of what's wrong with this show is characters are really badly animated. None of these look like junior high students at all. Some of them don't even look like they belong in the same universe. And then just the story is one that I can't really sanction. Our main character has like probably one of the most contrived ways of acquiring a harem that I've seen in recent years. There's too many shows this season, and this does not need to be one of them at all. Yuri Is My Job is probably not going to be like my favorite or anything. And I'm not sure I even like was vibing with these characters or the setting until the third episode, when certain like details about the characters starts to fall into place. And then that's when I actually got more interested. Too Cute Crisis it's a very simple premise, but if you are a pet owner, you recognize a lot of the jokes about cats and how they are treated even compared to like other domesticated animals. If you're a cat owner, you will get a kick out of like pretty much every single joke they make. How they are pretty much the owners of the house. They get to do whatever they want with no consequences. And just the fact that our main character is like so bewitched by the cuteness of these animals is very amusing. This is not a very deep show, but it's just one of those simple premises that goes a long way, surprisingly. The reason why Raylina ended up at the Duke's Mansion, as far as like isekai go, these are the stories that I would like to see more of. Ones that dwell less on the isekai aspect and more on the, okay, so we're in this new world. What is the story going to be? And the story this time is almost like a murder mystery where our main character is trying to, if not like solve her murder, just like find ways to prevent her fate from happening. If you're watching the English dub, I think Ian Sinclair is probably the perfect choice to play the Duke. He has just the right delivery for someone who's clearly not a good person, but can also bring on like that charm and charisma when needed. So if you're going to watch this, I would personally recommend checking out the dub, because the dub is pretty great. Then we have The Dangers in My Heart. This show, I had no idea what to think going into it, but I just kind of found myself weirdly endeared by this edgelord junior high kid who looks like someone who probably listened to Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge dozens of times growing up. The premise of this one is silly, but by the third episode, you're really like endeared by all of these characters. And given the genre, it's kind of obvious where the story is going to go from here, but it's still fun watching his interactions with all of his classmates. A Galaxy Next Door is honestly probably the most romantic show out of all of these. Like, it's not just romantic in the very literal sense that a romance is clearly blossoming between the manga artist and this star child who just happens to take up a position as his assistant. It's also very romantic about storytelling, about dealing with the loss of loved ones, raising a family. I can't say enough good things about this one. Definitely check this one out. If you want the literal version of star-crossed lovers, this one might be up your alley. Loving Yamada at level 999. I'm surprised how much I like this one too. It's a romantic comedy all about gamers, broken hearts, parasocial relationships, and they really do balance. The romance is a bit of a slow burn, but it's also just really funny. Like the way the characters interact, the animation inside the video game is a lot of fun. Even like the expressions on everyone's face, like whenever they do like visual gags with character reactions, always gets a good laugh. You want our characters to be happy, especially after the way things go down in the first episode. And then, of course, my personal favorite of the bunch is the big one, Oshinoko. I would rather you guys experience what happens in the first episode for yourself, but just this took so many twists and turns that I thought I had a grasp of what was happening as the first episode playing, and then we get to the twist at the end. I'm like, oh, okay, so I have to keep watching. On the whole, this genre would get probably an A-, maybe B+ if the Rokudo's bad girl has to drag it down, but I would say probably A-.
Well, it's like Rokudo's bad girls. It's trying to do stuff. I can tell what it's trying to do, especially with the fact that it's obviously, with its visual style, it's trying to be reminiscent of anime from a few decades ago, like from the maybe 90s, early 2000s era anime. Like, there's a reason why you don't see characters that look like this anymore. Especially that one military guy who looks like he's a 30-year-old parading around as a middle schooler. And I would absolutely be down with its commentary about masculinity if the women who like find themselves attached to the hip by our very bland and boring main character were at all interesting. The main blonde one doesn't have a whole lot to her, and who knows, maybe they will expand upon these characters more, but some of them are just very straightforward. There's a girl who likes to be a biker. There's this one lolly girl that they are trying to not make it her a part of the harem, but it's not working because we know what's going on. And it's a shame because some of the clips you see of this show that are like out of context can be like decently funny, but it's not there. The animation doesn't support the designs. The story isn't strong enough to carry the themes. It's a very bad show. And that's a shame. If this was released during the time period when delinquent dramas were a big deal, this would have done well because it's at points it feels like it's a parody of it all because some of these characters look like adults. Very Steve Buscemi from 30 Rock. How you do, fellow children, in a lot of ways. For Yuri Is My Job, I like the compelling angle of this main character has put on a facade her whole life, and now she's been put to the test with having to do so at a place where you are supposed to do it, but in a theatrical way. And she doesn't quite get the tone or is able to read the room. The whole goal of how we interact and what kind of face we put on in front of people is compelling, and that third episode twist definitely makes me want to see how the rest of it goes. I found it a little boring only because I just kind of wish there was a dub, because this show is very dialogue driven.
Mm-hmm.
And I think having not to look at subtitles at all times, especially if I'm like tired or had a long day of work, it's not the best kind of show to watch, even though I have nothing against subtitles. 2Q Crisis, I mean, it's unapologetic of what it's about. It's all about pet owners and how cute animals are and how we all have all these traditions and actions and names that we take to show off how cute our animals are and how we take care of them, and how the abusive couple who did not treat the main character's cat well got Independence Day sky lasered. I wish the animation was a bit better to make that scene look better and like have the punchline hit harder. But I love the fact that we have like instant gratification of how we wish we could just sky laser all bad pet owners who abandon animals and such. And the opening for this show didn't have to go so hard. And you think it would be so goofy because the song literally starts like meow, 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 meow. Like this really tough guy tone. But it's a catchy tune and the characters are likable. The humans are funny. They aren't trying to do weird things with the animals, which that one reincarnation anime from last season that we didn't talk about because it was a short season, a short anime, like did some weird things. I was just like, ugh. So this is response to that. Like, here's a cute show. It's not going to set your world on fire. It's probably not going to make it into your top 10 of the year. But it gets a job done, and that's sometimes what we need in an anime. Just gets in, gets out, doesn't try to overextend its welcome. A Galaxy Next Door, I was very sassy about describing, like when I was describing this show, but I do like it. I think our main characters are very sweet, even though the whole, like, you touched my stinger, so that means we are instantly married, is a weird way to ignite the whole story. And it is amusing because I was thinking with this title, it was like, oh, it's just going to be a metaphorical thing. I don't mind that. And then it becomes literal. And the main characters are sweet. They're slowly building up on the romance because they are at least aware of how absurd it's like, we just met. You touched my stinger. We are going to get married sounds, and how it's like, no, let's build upon our relationship first. And the family drama is really sweet. I got a little bored from time to time, but I like it. I thought its whole thing about relationships and the manga industry were very nice touches. The reason why Raylina ended up at the Duke's mansion, I just liked the duo chess games that are going on with the characters, because Raylina is obviously trying to make sure she doesn't die or end up dead, and has to go through the hoops of high society. And she thinks she found an easy way out, where the Duke is obviously playing his own game of chess that's not matching up or syncing up with our lead. So the reason I would want to watch more of this is to see where the story goes. This is also one where I felt a little bored at times, mostly because a lot of the characters are just standing around for obvious, time-saving reasons. Not that it's a bad thing, but sometimes it's like, I need a little some. But in general, it's a very interesting romantic drama. The Dangers in My Heart is the true hidden gem of the season, where we have probably one of the most realistic portrayals of teenage awkwardness at around the same time puberty starts to kick in anime. It captures that whole, man, the world sucks, people suck, I want them all to die, like, mentality, and how the person is just saying it, his bark is worse than his bite.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's yet another, like, oh, the weirdo gets the hot girl, like, I don't mind this trope. It can be eye rolling, but that's mostly because they don't put any effort or think about how can we make this character interesting. And I like her. I think she's very sweet, very cute, and I like their chemistry together. I think they capture teenage boys very well because they can be the worst. And I like that the girls catch on very quickly with what that kind of weird game that they found. For a show that, like, I was dreading the puberty jokes, like the whole sex quiz thing that the boys try to pull on the girls or what have you. I was like, come on, we don't need this. But due to the execution of the jokes, I found that they worked. Because there's always that moment, and I remember when I was going through puberty, I was like, man, I don't care about girls. I just want to watch an action movie. I just want to go home, watch cartoons. I just want to, oh, she's cute. It's like a snap of the finger with how it hits. And kudos to the fact that they have a heavyset character and she is not made as a joke character. And that even there are points where the characters find her attractive. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty good. You don't see that a lot in anime because anime tends to treat fat characters as jokes and punchlines. It was very sweet, and you fell for the drama and the boy just being like, man, I'm supposed to be this edgy edgelord bro. I want to kill everyone with my box cutter, but oh my god, she's crying and I want to hug her kind of thing. Like, he's so awkward. And that's what works about it. It's the realistic portrayal of teenagers. Oshinoko. Man, was I not ready for this. I know Haley said, I don't know how y'all are going to react to this or how they were going to adapt this. And I was like, they have found ways to adapt every kind of anime that we could ever think was unadaptable. We saw that with Chainsaw Man. We were going to see this with Oshinoko. And whoever was the production committee behind this, who got the best resources for Doga Kobo to make this show, because I thought this was like a Cloverworks production because it looks that good. Probably Doga Kobo's best looking show in a while. Though My Senpai is Annoying was also like visually good. I can see why they crammed 30 chapters. And you would think at multiple points with how the doctor and the, spoiler alert, the sick girl who passes away in the beginning part, who both reincarnate as the children to this idol, it would get weird. And apparently the manga does get weird because anime is going to anime, and anime does a lot of nonsense that's just not okay. But you feel for the drama of how this idol wants to raise her kids and still wants to be performing and such and wants to be paid well. Because on top of the drama and the slice of life stuff, the show is very much focused on criticizing and calling out the entertainment industry, whether it's the idol industry or TV and movies and acting and such. Because once the twist at the end happens, it turns into a revenge thriller for one part of it, with the brother wanting to find who killed their mom and the sister wanting to be an idol at the company that her mom worked at, who's not really doing idol stuff anymore after that whole incident. It's split up into 3 parts. There's the slice of life stuff, there's the stuff with the brother and sister and the characters, and then the other third is criticizing the industry. Because they'll introduce characters like this redhead girl where she stopped getting a lot of acting jobs because she would keep overshadowing other actors, which would think that makes her like look bad, like a very bad actor to work with. But it's a lot of the times it was brought up because she kept getting stuck on projects where the point was not for acting, but to advertise these new models or something like that. Vanity projects for the models and such. And the moment you see that bit of commentary, I thought of about like a dozen or so TV shows and films where it's like, oh, we've seen this before.
I just kept thinking about the CW shows.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. Like, but overall, I really enjoyed these 3 episodes, even though it's a lot to take in for 90 minutes. And I wish the idol that the first 2/3 focus on was in the movie a little more, but it's not really about that. She's just used as more commentary and such. But they keep everything around the show when she's no longer part of it compelling. You want to see what happens. You want to see if the brother goes off on the dark side of this revenge plot of his. And I definitely want to see more of it. Maybe I shouldn't have been shocked that this worked out so well because it is by the same author of Kaguya-sama, Love is War. It's a very different show than that one. But maybe that author just has a good head on their shoulders. You know, it helps to be creative and have the luxury and opportunity to take time to flesh out a new story. And so you don't have to run into nonsense. I think this is the one I'm worried the most about going off the rails because it's just so good. And I would hate for this to be a Wonder Egg priority situation where after the 7th episode, everything just went crumbling. But my favorite was Loving Yamada at level 999. I'm going to be partial to it because it's about college students for the most part. I love that our lead characters are on the young adult side of the romance spectrum. And even though we could have easily had like this wet blanket of a male love interest, he's a good person. He's just not the most social person in the world. He doesn't know how to pick up on a lot of social cues, but he is willing to help and be there for the certain people and such. And this might have my favorite cast of characters out of any anime this season. When they meet the other members of their guild in real life, and I just fell in love with the characters. I love the 19-year-old guy who plays the bunny girl in the game and how just passionate he is about role playing and character creation and such. I love the old man that we get introduced to, who is great. I love his character. It's a very wholesome show, even though by episode 5, a slightly dark twist happens, but they handle it so well. Then again, maybe it's because this is by the director Morio Asaka, who directed Chobits and Galaxy Girls. So maybe it's like, oh, that's not a shock. And maybe it's also because Mashiro, the author of the manga, made a really good manga. Sometimes a good manga gets a good adaptation. And I like how the game parallels with real life and how they make the drama and the stakes high enough to keep you watching, even if you know that these two are probably going to get together. But getting from point A to point B is a lot of fun. I just love this world, the characters, the video game that they play. We're definitely going to turn some of these anime into, give them their own section of an episode when they all come out and such.
Just a quick aside, I'm looking at your editorial, and the whole time we were doing this rundown, I had to hold myself back from laughing at the expression on Yamada's face with just the 2 eyes and no mouth.
The animation at Madhouse is great. They found a really good team to capture the comedic moments of this show. You'll see a lot more of that in episode 4 and 5. And with that, we are done with the spring season. I am happy. Not just because we watched a ton of anime and some of them were bad, but I was very excited by the end of it all to get through this season because I was not sure about it at first. And it seems like this happens a lot because I watch the bad shows first, or the ones I think will be bad first. And then sometimes I'm like, well, that's not a shock. And then sometimes I'm like, that was pretty good. It was a stronger season overall than I was expecting.
I would go as far as to say this might be the strongest season if we're just going by the number of good to bad anime. Throughout both parts, this had more good than bad. And even the bads weren't, we had reasons for why we didn't like them, but none of them were as bad as like X-Arm. I bring that up a lot, but that really is the brown standard of anime.
Teresa, what do you think about this overall season now that we've covered everything?
I don't feel as thoroughly like wrung out by watching all the shows as I have in the past. I definitely feel like, even the ones like one hit like kill, like watchable. So I think that's something. And if it's like bad, it's like there's something kooky about it or like weird where I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. So I have to watch another episode to figure that out. And when it was good, it was really good. Oshinoko, is very interesting. And it's like what I like about anime of like, you might not know what's happening next. And it has like really interesting animation to go with those stories. So I thought it was pretty strong. I would just say, do better isekai shows. We can only hope each season can find a few that do better.
Well, we do have an isekai next season where our main character gets turned into a vending machine and is sent to a fantasy world. So we'll see. Let's go through our 5 favorites, even though I could easily recommend 10 or so. For my 5, I would recommend Loving Yamada at level 999, Insomniacs After School, Heavenly Delusion, Skippin' Loafer, and Oshinoko, with honorable mentions going to Hell's Paradise and Magical Destroyers, Mashal, My Clueless First Friend, and Otaku Elf. Teresa, what about you?
My top 5 kind of shifted now that I've watched everything. I would say The Galaxy Next Door, Hell's Paradise, Insomniacs After School, Heavenly Delusion, and Oshinoko, just for like story. Almost all of them are for story reasons and animation reasons. They're both even enough that makes me really excited about watching the next episodes.
Mike, what about you?
I feel like we all kind of have similar top 5s. Mine would be Oshinoko, Loving Yamada at level 999, Heavenly Delusions, Hell's Paradise, and probably A Galaxy Next Door. Coming up with a top 5 for this season was a lot harder than I thought, but there are a lot of shows that I could have recommended.
Yeah, as long as we can keep recommending anime, I feel like it won't be a season that's wasted.
Yeah.
But I do wish the anime industry would actually slow down, pay your animators, and at the very least, take time to make the isekai stand out more because I can't stand it anymore. In a short amount of years, I am now officially sick and tired of isekais that do nothing with their premise.
Yeah.
Hard agree. Like, we're not naive. We know the genre is not going away anytime soon, but if you're going to stick around as long as you are, you have to do more than just go through the motions.
Well, it's like James Gunn said, story comes first. People come to your movie and rewatch it again if you have a good story connected to it, which most don't. But we'll have to see how the summer season goes. Hoping for the best.
Indeed. Before we get out of here, Teresa, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me at Teresa Electro on most social platforms.
And Cameron, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter at CamsEyeView. I have a website called camseyeView.biz where I review animated films and shows from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/CamsEyeView. That's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at CaptainK42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at RenPopCulture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser, subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/renegade pop culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, basically wherever podcasts are available. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.